And I am live. Woohoo! I'm back, baby. The the stream must flow.
Yes, that internet connection must flow for the stream to flow.
Yes. In
I got
total
it flowing.
violation of the Butlerian Jihad.
Yeah, so we are apparently.
Yes.
And I was also even more so in violation of the Butlerian Jihad many years ago when I used to participate in high school robotics.
Yeah, exactly. What the fuck, man? You're gonna bring an end to mankind.
Well, then again, we also have to acknowledge that Leto Atreides II was dabbling with some other human civilization that was trying to revive technology. I can't remember what they were called, but I remember that being a thing within God Emperor of Dune. Somebody
Yeah,
was
like
being critical of
the
him saying,
Twi'leks. Yeah.
sorry, what?
Yeah, the Twi'leks. Yeah.
Right. Twi'leks. That kind of reminds me of the Twi'leks from Star Wars almost. The name does. But yes, hello, everybody, on both my end and on Loudmouth's end. As you can probably tell, both of us have seen Dune, and we have some things that we want to say about it. That is the 2021 version, not the crappy 1984 version.
Yes, this version was much, much, much better.
Particularly the Baron.
Oh yeah, the Baron was terribly done in the 80s version. He's basically just a cackling mental patient in that movie.
Right.
The Baron in the book, he's this fiendishly evil, genocidal genius who just does these plans within plans within plans to scheme for power and control. Whereas the Baron in David Lynch's Dune is just, they'll know that he was high. The Baron Vladimir Harkonnen who brought their doom.
Yeah, like he was like a too human in a sort of crazy insane asylum kind of way in the 84 version, whereas in the 2021 version he was a whole lot more cold and calculating and slobbish too, to where that he just came off as even more inhuman than I think they nailed it down very well as far as the inhuman feel of him and the Harkonnens in general as well.
Yes, definitely. I really like this movie. But it's kind of a hard movie to grade on its own because it is only essentially half a movie. So with a lot of the things that are missing from it, I kind of wonder how many are going to be in part 2 if we get a part 2.
Right. I will say that that's one of the things that kind of hit me when I was done watching the movie, was that it did make me feel just a little bit empty by the end, mostly because of the fact that it was a cliffhanger. But if I was to compare it to, like, say, Fellowship of the Ring, where that was like a cliffhanger in of itself, essentially, in kind of a similar way, I almost say that Fellowship might have been a little bit more fulfilling feeling. That's just totally my subjective feelings anyways, than Dune 2021. But again, that's totally just me.
Well, yeah. Like, imagine if the Lion King ended right after Simba met Timon and Pumbaa.
Right.
Well, you might get the Lion King part 2. Will Simba return and take back Pride Rock? Well, if this movie makes over $500 million, maybe you will.
Right. So on the fast track of getting at least some kind of sequel, depending on how high quality it is, with how much that they gross for the budget of the next movie.
Right. Well, the box office it's getting now is subpar by pre-pandemic standards, but when you consider the pandemic and its simultaneous release on HBO Max, they're not too bad.
Right. No, yeah, definitely not. I mean, you compare it to, like, say, Suicide Squad, the 2021 version, and Crude 2.
Yeah.
This movie stomps them both by far.
Right.
It probably is on the fast track. I mean, since now it's finally released in America, of getting at least $400,000 or $500,000 with when originally it was like a $130 million budget.
$165 million budget. From what I hear, $400 million is the break-even point if it were just making money from the box office. But because of the whole simultaneous HBO Max release, it doesn't really need to make 400 million in order to get a sequel, whereas like in a pre-pandemic world it would.
Yeah, so HBO Max will share some of the revenue to the Warner
Yeah,
Brothers studios
yeah.
for whatever revenue is made off of
But I'm
people
hoping it
viewing
makes
it.
400 million in the box office anyway, because that would guarantee a sequel. Despite the whole simultaneous HBO Max bullshit, it still managed to break even. That's pretty damn good.
Right. Cool.
Yes.
So the Baron was definitely a strong point within this movie.
Actually, I will disagree with you a bit because while the Baron was great every minute he was on screen, I was kind of disappointed how little screen time he has.
Yeah, all right. That's understandable. I guess.
I kind of wonder if they're saving a lot of things about him for part two, or whether there was a lot about him on the cutting left on the cutting room floor.
Right. Maybe in part two they will have some brief mention of how he's a kitty diddler. Like I don't
Yeah,
expect them to like go anything like
no, they
graphic in
won't.
that sort of
No,
area.
nor would I want them to. But it is part of
No,
his character, of his villainous and disgusting character.
like even if they had just a little boy like leaving the room that he was
I doubt they'll
in,
go that far.
kind of.
Very unlikely they'll go that far.
Perhaps, but I know that that's what they did with Beasts of No Nation. That was an African-produced film. The main character, who is a little boy, he just leaves the room that he was essentially molested or whatever, just looking all traumatized, and you can get the implication of what happened to him.
Right, but I
It
don't.
might be
I don't think they're even going to go that far. Like I doubt there'll be any mention of the pedophilia thing. But one thing I was really
perhaps.
kind of disappointed. This may seem like a nitpick. Is my favorite Baron line from the Baron is after he kills Yui. He says, "Never trust a traitor, not even one you created."
Oh, yeah, that definitely would have been an impactful and
He should have.
kind of
I
thought-provoking
was
line.
bummed that he didn't say that line out loud after Yui was killed.
Right.
He should. Yeah. Well, I guess in the book it was like an internal monologue, so he wouldn't have said it out loud in the book. But in the 2000 miniseries, he does say that line out loud. I wish he had said that line out loud here.
And by the way, spoiler alert to everybody: we are not avoiding spoilers.
We are
Yes,
not avoiding
Dr.
spoilers.
Yui. Yes, Dr. Yui dies ultimately.
He was a traitor.
Traitor.
Traitor. Dr. Yui was the traitor.
The thing that definitely had me for the entirety of the movie, especially the beginning, was the immersiveness of it. I mean, the sets were on point, the cinematography was on point, but above all, the soundtrack. This fucking soundtrack was on point.
Oh yeah, like during the scenes when the worms are on their way, you really feel like the power of this creature and the terror of. Imagine if this thing was headed towards you.
Yep.
That was extremely well done. And yeah, now that they changed the death of Leah Kynes on top of changing Leah Kynes' gender, the character's death is completely different.
Yeah, I don't know.
In the book, Kynes is just kind of exiled to the desert, and he kind of has like this long internal monologue about the nature of Arrakis, which wouldn't have really worked in a movie because it's an internal monologue, unless they're just going to say it out loud and then blow up. So I guess they thought getting stabbed by a Sarda car and having that line, "I only serve Shai Hulud," was just a cooler way to do it.
Right. I mean, it's not the biggest disloyalty. I mean, essentially Leah Kynes just dies of starvation and thirst, right?
Actually, he comes onto a pre-spiced mass. He hears the little makers within the ground, and he just kind of explodes. So he dies out in the desert.
Okay. He dies. He explodes, and you said little makers of spice. Like, I'm sorry. What do you mean?
The sand trout, little makers, he calls them.
Okay. Wait, I thought the spice was essentially sweat of the worms themselves.
No, it's more created by their larval form, the sand trout.
Okay. I know that the sand trout, that is the thing that gives Leto the Second's worm-like skin that he uses to fight off.
They're like the early larval stage of the sandworms.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And I do want to say, like, you of course watched my my own review of the movie, and I got into talking about as to how that change that they did. That I mean, I did not really expect Liet Kynes to have died like that, honestly, because, well, I don't know. I guess I somewhat should have expected it if I was to actually have read the books, but unfortunately I did not. But nonetheless, as I mentioned in my review, Quinn's ideas, he made a video that was responding to anti-SJWs, air quotes, that were complaining about the fact that they gender bent Liet Kynes. And one of his defenses was maybe they can make Liet Kynes better as compared to the 84 David Lynch movie, or even the books, if they like actually have it so that he, she, whatever, interacts more with Chani, which is supposed to be her daughter. But they ultimately did not show that, and they had Liet Kynes die in the Denis Villeneuve version. So therefore, that defense kind of falls flat on its face. I mean, it definitely is not a deal breaker. And honestly, another thing that I said in my review was that it was not like Captain Marvel. I mean, the most that I was afraid with Liet Kynes, I did not think that they were going to be a deal breaker. I mean, it's kind of the same way of Endgame and Captain Marvel. Like, everybody was afraid that Captain Marvel was going to be a complete movie spoiler. But building up, in spite of all the passive aggressiveness and snootiness of Brie Larson and her character, she was barely in the movie, and she did not hardly was a drag on the movie. Whereas Liet Kynes was even better. I mean, she got more screen time in total than Captain Marvel did in Endgame, and she was actually lot less mean-spirited than, say, Captain Marvel of Endgame. So I gotta say that my expectations are subverted in a good way as far as how they handled Liet Kynes in the Denis Villeneuve version here. You know?
Yeah. Overall, I thought her performance was fine. If I were making the movie, I would have still preferred Kynes stay a male because that's how it was in the book. But
yeah, me too.
Was it like anything that ruined the movie? Absolutely not.
Of course not.
Some
things that did like improve it, like can we just go to appreciate Osric Isaac's beard for playing as Leto Atreides first?
Don't get all gay for Oscar Isaac. But the Oscar Isaac was really cool. He did handle the part really well. If there was another kind of I do kind of wonder if there'll be like an extended cut of this movie, because it did kind of feel like some pieces were missing from the plot. Like mostly like there's a lot of intrigue about who like the traitor is in the novel, and a lot of like people like Tufir Haddad and Gurney Halleck thinking might be like the Lady Jessica, what have you, and none of that's in the movie. And also it doesn't really explain what the hell mentats are. You see Tufir Haddad, who's was it?
There might
Tufir Haddad is the Atreides mentat, and Piper is the Baron's mentat, and they're both in the movie, but it doesn't really like reflect on what mentats are, what they do, and how they're important. Well, and that's kind of important for the Dune universe. It's very important.
The fatter Atreides mentat wasn't shown to have died, so maybe they'll still have him in part 2. And right. Also, I want to say that there probably likely is going to be an extended version released on Ultra 4K HD or Blu-ray or whatever, because there was some dialogue that was revealed in the trailer that was not included in this movie, I had noticed. Like, for example, I think it was the first trailer as compared to the second one. The first trailer of where that Paul Atreides was all like to the Reverend Mother, that my father is going to get a new planet, and the Reverend Mother is all like he's going to lose that planet too. That I did not hear that line at all. So there's probably like extended dialogue between Paul and the Reverend Mother in the one room.
Yeah, there's also no mention of that Paul had mentat abilities, because mentats are really important because of the nature of the Dune universe, the fact that it's a far future world where computers are banned, and mankind, since they can't rely on thinking machines any longer, they had to like invent human-based technologies, and that's what mentats are. They're like human computers. You see that kind of very briefly in one scene when was it Duke Leto? He asks Tufir to do a mathematical calculation, and he does it in his head like instantly. like a really complex one.
Yeah,
Like
his
Donkey.
eyes went like all white, and then he went to regular eyes about a second later.
Yeah, that was him being a. That's what mentats are. They're human computers who can just do enormous amount of calculations in the human mind.
To become a mentat, don't you have to have taken spice in your life?
Yeah, and there's like special training for it that, but only some people can do it.
I got one question. Are mentats like addicted, and are they like biologically reliant on the spice in the same way that blue-eyed people are?
I think that I forget actually on that one.
Because I noticed that that he did not have blue eyes. I was thinking to myself, that guy is probably supposed to be one of the smarter people, one of those human computer type dudes that's relying on the spice. I wonder why he doesn't have blue eyes. So I guess there's like a little bit of nuanced difference between a mentat and somebody who has blue eyes,
Right.
as addicted to the spice.
Yeah. What else was missing? There's that whole scene like there's like a dinner house scene. There's a lot of like intrigue there, but that scene's just not in the movie. I don't even know if it was shot. There, like I remember there's one where there's this like Fremen girl who's like trying to seduce Paul, and he mentions a fisherman dying on Caladan by drowning to death in the ocean, and the Fremen girl's like, "What a peculiar way to die." It's like it never occurred to a Fremen girl that it was possible to die by drowning to death. I thought that was kind of interesting.
Yeah, because
somebody who grew up on Arrakis wouldn't even think that was possible.
Because there isn't even a single puddle on Arrakis, much less an entire lake for somebody to drown in.
Right. I don't think nobody on Arrakis has ever died by drowning.
Right.
At least not for a very long time.
What was I going to say? There's some point that you mentioned that I want to expound upon. I forget. But Duncan, Idaho, actually. One thing that you had mentioned that I had got kind of wrong about my review is that I thought that Duncan, Idaho was supposed to survive the first book, and he like goes into the second book. But I guess in the second book, he is cloned, or he is like the official term within the Duneverse is that they're called Golas. Clones are actually called Golas. So he's like cloned that and in God Emperor.
Yeah.
Wow. So not only did Frank Herbert really like Duncan as a character, but also all the in-universe characters really liked him as a person so much to where they were all like, clone him twice.
Which is kind of weird because he doesn't really have that much of a character in the first book. He's mostly just described as like a brilliant swords master. Well, he's like one of the best swordsmen in the galaxy. And he does have a really cool death where he dies fighting off and holding back an entire legion of Sardaukar.
Right.
Which we finally got faithfully put on screen here, which neither of the previous two Dune movies have done that right. Like the miniseries just blew Duncan, Idaho up. They have a missile fire at him and he blows up. That's his death in the miniseries.
That is pitiful.
I mean,
what did the David Lynch version do?
Well, the Lynch, I don't even remember if he was killed on screen. I think he was, but yeah, they're like, well, he does die by fighting this legion of Sardaukar. Yeah, but that would require staging an action sequence, and that's hard, man. That costs money.
Well, they were lazy enough with the cinematography and the Lynch version, so I guess it only makes sense that they also be lazy on the manpower too, right?
Right. But here, that was how Duncan Idaho dies in the book right there. He holds back an entire legion of Sardaukar.
Badass.
And yes, that is as badass of a death as you can get. He went down fighting to the end.
Yep. I do want to say, like, the one part when the Harkonnens, like, ambush the Atreides, that he escapes on one of those planes and he, like, barely makes... he, like, is seemingly one of the very few pilots or anybody to get on a ship to actually deal a few blows to the Harkonnens. I don't know. There was something that I felt that was kind of forced about that for some reason. Like him getting that as many kills as he did that was shown on screen during this movie. It almost felt in the same way as Poe in episode 7. Like when they're being rescued from Maz's bar. And he just like they had had the TIE fighters all lined up like a whole row of dominoes, and Poe is just like shooting them like left, right, center, and it just feels a little bit rushed. I mean, this wasn't as bad as that here in the Dune movie. Duncan, Idaho, catching one of those dragonfly like plane things and dealing a few blows. But what?
Thopters. They're called thopters.
Thopters?
Yeah.
Like with a TH?
Yeah.
Okay. I thought those were pretty cool. Like they looked a lot like dragonflies. Did they have those in the David Lynch movie? I can't remember.
They were, but they looked very different.
Hmm.
The design of them in this movie was totally new, and I liked it better. I can't think of a single thing that the David Lynch movie did better than this movie. Like this movie is better than what Lynch gave us in '84 in every possible way.
Yeah. There was one thing that Quinn's ideas Sora mentioned. I guess this was the earlier point that I forgot and wanted to mention, was that within the 2021 version, there wasn't as much room to breathe. Like it felt almost kind of claustrophobic with the way that it was rushing blow and go for all the Atreides. Like there wasn't any moment to settle down, slow down, and whatnot. Whereas opposed to the David Lynch version, or at least I got the implication. I cannot hardly remember that movie. I fell asleep at so many different points watching that movie.
Well, it had the Baron milking a cat for some reason.
Yeah, waste of screen time right there.
Yeah. Yes. We are adapting 800-page book in only 2 hours and 10 minutes. We definitely need to have cat milking there.
Right.
And also a lot of shots of pugs, a lot of dogs. I don't think dogs are ever mentioned in the book, but Lynch threw a bunch of dogs. I guess he just really liked pugs.
Denis Villeneuve had the spider alien pet thingy though.
Yeah, what the hell was that? I guess it's kind of interesting because it is a universe where humans have spread around the galaxy, so they would interact with alien creatures somewhere.
Right. I mean, they were able to find the worms, for crying out loud.
Right.
As for example of alien life forms. So
well, it kind of implies in some of the later books that the worms might have been created by man, or brought there by somewhere else. It's not really ever made clear where the worms actually came from, but it implies that the worms are not native to Arrakis.
Yeah, I think I got that little thing from Quinn's Ideas videos.
It never really explicitly explains where they came from. Maybe if Frank Herbert had written that 7th book he wanted to, maybe he would have put it there. I don't know.
Right. Also got into the Kralazek? Yeah, Kralazek. Get into the end times battle of when the aliens come in from the outer reaches of the universe to the parts of the universe that humans rule.
Really?
Well, that's one of the prophecies that was outlined by Quinn's Ideas when he gone basically explaining Kralazek. That is better explained in the much later books, I guess, and implied somewhat in the earlier books. And I think there's some offshoot books that his son Brian Herbert had done alongside. There was some other guy. I can't remember what his name is. The guy
Kevin
who
Anderson.
did what?
Kevin Anderson.
Kevin Anderson, that might be it. I'm not that real good at remembering these names, but yeah. I mean, you never known about Kralazek?
No, I probably haven't read that far.
Well, I know that's one of the reasons as to why that Leto Atreides II was basically being such a fascist towards all of humanity and being tyrannical towards them, was somewhat to prep them for the coming harsher times, that being Kralazek. He peered into the far distant future and saw what was going to happen to humanity and thought that the only way to prep humanity for it was to oppress them, and by the end of his reign to have them scatter throughout the entire reaches of the universe, the outer reaches, so that the aliens coming of when that Kralazek happens will not be able to wipe them all out.
The 3,000-year-old virgin was helping us all.
oh, right, yeah.
Yes. Also,
3,000
he
years.
also literally the biggest cuck in the galaxy.
Oh, wait, what? I don't think I caught that part.
Uh,
How is Leto the second a cuck?
it kind of gets into spoilers for book 4 though.
Okay, yeah, never mind. I guess it doesn't really matter. I mean, we are kind of getting ahead of ourselves.
Right.
What other things to mention? I know that Quinn's idea is that he was quite impressed with the portrayal of Stilgar in this movie.
Oh yes, I was too. I thought he was really well cast, but we didn't see that much of him though. He didn't get much screen time.
I thought he was pretty dignified, to say the least bit.
Oh yeah, he definitely seemed to fit the part really well. I look forward to seeing him in part 2 and seeing all the other characters we haven't seen yet. Let's see, Count Fenring, Fate Harkonnen, Princess Irulan, and of course Emperor Shaddam. None of them are in this movie.
Yeah. Wait. Oh, Emperor Shaddam. Okay. Princess Irulan.
Well, that's kind of interesting. Is in Lynch's movie, those are like some of the first characters we see. We see this weird scene where like a guild navigator comes and visits the emperor and like talks about plotting against House Atreides, which does not happen in the book. There's there's no scene like that.
A Spacing Guild member specifically,
right? The space. Yeah. Like you also don't see a guild navigator in this movie. They're saving that for Dune Messiah, hopefully.
Apparently, according to Quinn's ideas, some of the people with the red and orange fishbowl heads at the very beginning of the movie.
Yeah, they were guildsmen. Yes, they were from the guild, but they weren't like full navigators.
Yeah, they were more like proto guild members almost before they like fully evolve into these big old fish-like creatures.
Correct. Oh shit! Hey, Tyler, I'm gonna invite Tyler Preston's in there. I'm gonna send you the link to come in the stream, Tyler. Oh, hold on. Let's see.
Oh.
Hey, awesome.
Okay. Hello, Tyler Preston.
Awesome.
Nice to see you around.
Definitely gonna invite you on here, man.
I don't think I've ever talked to Tyler.
Yeah, you have. You talked to Tyler before.
Was it the Rambo review stream?
No, it was. I think it was the China one, but here. All right. I sent. Hey, Tyler, if you want to jump on, I sent you the link.
Cool. Awesome. I wonder if he's seen the Dune movie.
Yeah, it's a review of the Dune movie.
Right. What was I gonna say? How do we pick up? I'm gonna say I was almost expecting Chani to have a little bit more screen time, but they relegate Chani almost entirely to flashbacks, or rather premonitions, flash forwards, visions, if you will, and just a few lines at the end, or a few moments of screen time at the bare end of the movie.
Well, which isn't really surprising if you've read the book, because she doesn't really come in till more than halfway through it.
Okay, I gotcha.
So I know they were playing her up in the in the trailers, but of course, I guess because she's a famous actress. But I knew she wasn't going to be in this movie much.
Oh, we're gonna have MJ from the modern MCU Spider-Man movies play Chani. Cool, let's do it. Zendaya is the actress's name.
Right. Someone made a joke that in the Dune extended edition, we'll have even more shots of Zendaya moving in slow motion.
Moving in slow motion, like in the visions of Paul.
Tyler, my man, how's it going?
I'm good, guys. How are you?
Good. I haven't talked to you in a while. How's life been?
I've been making like a lot of videos on my channel, and I just, been just catching my notification. I saw that you were doing a live stream, so I was here.
Awesome. Good to see. Good to hear from you, man. We were just doing a review. We thought we'd like do a live stream to discuss the new Dune movie.
Unfortunately, I have not seen it though, but I heard it's the same director from Blade Runner.
Yeah, it's the same director from Blade Runner 2049. Yeah.
Do you care about spoilers, Tyler?
Not at all.
Have you read the book?
And unfortunately, no. I haven't also seen that other movie that came before it.
The 1984 David Lynch version?
No, I haven't seen that one.
Must have watched the miniseries then.
I don't know. But Well, yeah, we're discussing all the things that are happening. Both of us really like the movie. We both want it to do well because it's kind of like only the first half of the story, so it needs to get a sequel in order to really be a fulfilled adaptation.
That, and I'm also freaking tired of the oversaturation in the movie market of both MCU and Star Wars properties. So a new sci-fi franchise to compete against them. Cool, awesome.
Yeah, definitely.
Like, how long was the book originally?
It's a pretty lengthy book. Like they managed to stretch The Hobbit into 3 movies, and Dune's like twice the length of The Hobbit.
I remember The Hobbit being like at least 200, 300 pages, so it didn't need like, you know, 3 parts to do that one book. But like, if it's that long, then probably need some more movies.
Yeah, they split it into 2, which was David Lynch back in the 80s. He made the entire novel as one 2-hour, 10-minute movie, and it's pretty much incomprehensible at times. They actually, I'm not making this up. When the movie came out in the theaters, they would hand people like a cheat sheet that would like explain various terms within the movie because they didn't have time to explain all this shit.
Yeah, I remember how Reckless Trucker explained how his dad, when he saw it in theaters, he felt kind of insulted that people were handing him a cheat sheet.
Yeah, but because Dune is like a ridiculously complex novel. It has it's like a really deep and complex mythology to it.
Yep. Muad'Dib, Kralazak, Mentat, Kwisatz Haderach, all these different mumbo jumbo terms. The spice melange.
It's said like it's set over 20,000 years in the future. So it's like this future where humans have like spread throughout the galaxy, but also that's also more primitive at the same time because computers are banned in this universe. Oh, let's see, Alex Lemons. Howdy ho, gang! I've arrived. Cool. Good to see you, Alex.
I'm good.
Let's see.
For Frank Herbert, one of the things was that Frank Herbert. I don't know. Some people have made commentaries before about how he would have struggled to predict of how that the super far future would have advanced in technology. So he decided to like cheat his way around that and be all like, screw it, computers are banned, essentially.
But actually, I think that's one of the most intriguing. Welcome, missed you. Thanks, man. I appreciate that, Alex. But actually, that's one of the most intriguing parts of the Dune universe is the lack of like computers or robots. Because I often think that technology is advancing so fast that we're like building the engine of our own destruction with advancing computer technology. Like the computers can be used to rob mankind of their free will, or just simply
or an EMP blast.
Huh?
An EMP blast strikes one of the power grids.
Right. There's all kinds of ways that like that a super advanced AI could be like incredibly dangerous over time. So Frank Herbert's idea that there was some kind of war between man and machines and humans after they somehow won this war decided to destroy them all and outlaw them throughout the galactic empire. It was actually one of the more interesting ideas, but Dune is set thousands of years after that, so humans have like lived with a lack of machines literally as a religious commandment for thousands of years. It's in their Bible, thou shalt not build a machine with the mind of a man.
Right. I do want to say that Warhammer isn't too different from that. Of course, Warhammer came like 60 years after the 60 80 years after the first Dune novel ever came out, and essentially they have no computers.
I mean, AI is only 56 years old, dude.
What, the first Dune?
Yeah, it came out in 1965.
Oops, my bad. Well, the oldest that I think Warhammer is the 80s or 90s. I can't remember. And I do not know what came first, games or books or board game or whatever, but nonetheless, point being is that Warhammer, they've kind of adapted the same sort of thing. No AI is allowed within the Imperium of Man. The way that they cheat around that, though, is that they essentially make these cyborg-like people called servitors. That's the closest thing that it gets. But outside of that, there are like no video gaming type technology, no holodecks like in Star Trek, nothing of that sorts. And the way that they communicate with each other is by a primitive paging system or whatever that they had way back in the early 1900s.
And you can also kind of tell that it was written in the 60s because a big plot line of it is the use of psychedelic drugs to like expand human consciousness. Because essentially that's what the spice melange is. It's essentially a psychedelic drug.
You're saying Frank Herbert was a hippie?
Frank Herbert was a massive fucking hippie, no doubt. He was one of the smartest hippies that ever lived. Yeah, produced by giant worms on this desert planet. It's such a weird premise. But I mean,
it's unique.
We rely on honey, which of course comes from bees. It's not really that much different.
I mean, what use is honey for us in humanity as compared to the spice melange in the Duneverse, anyways?
Well, another thing that kind of leads you thrown in, there's like this quote from about I forgot exactly what part of it, from Adam Smith and The Wealth of Nations, kind of talking about the subjective value of precious metals versus water. Water is quite obviously far more valuable for human survival than diamonds or gold or silver or any of that shit. Yet what sells for more? Because water is so plentiful, it literally falls from the sky on our planet. But imagine if you lived on a planet where it's incredibly rare, where it's such a precious resource. Like a whole bunch of Dune the novel, whole bunch of detail is spent on how people survive on this world where there's so little water.
Yeah, Frank Herbert was definitely ingenuitive, if that's even a word.
Right.
Definitely. Yeah, one thing I noticed about this movie, I haven't seen the movie myself, but the news that I heard about it was the director was actually really upset that the movie was coming on HBO Max and also the theater at the same time.
Yeah, we were talking about that earlier. It was it definitely has probably hurt this movie's box office. Like the current box office returns it's getting, if this were a pre-pandemic world, would be kind of subpar. But when you consider that it's being released on HBO Max simultaneously, they're pretty decent. And it's impossible to really know if it were released on its own without HBO Max in a pre-pandemic world, would it do better at the box office? How would it do then? It's really hard.
Yeah, it seems as though that it's not just that director for Dune, but other movies by Warner Brothers, or at least other co-productions with them. Like I remember hearing like these sort of reports, like from Christopher Nolan, how he was also really upset, and so it seemed. I'm sorry, I cannot hear any of that. It's just breaking up.
Something's wrong with your connection.
I don't know what it would be.
Okay, I hear you now.
Okay.
I don't know what happened there, but something's up.
Oh, sorry. What were you saying? Oh, Loudmouth.
Was it about the theatrical experience? Yeah, it was. They were afraid of the theatrical experience being ruined by streaming. They're like some exclusivity window between the theater and home video has always been required for the theater to really hold its place.
Yeah, I mean, the only thing I really hate about the movie theater is not necessarily like the screen or the sound systems, but just how expensive like the food is and the tickets, really.
Yeah. My local theater actually gives out free popcorns on Tuesdays, so I often see movies on Tuesdays there.
So is it like an AMC or like a local mom and pop?
It's like a local thing, so it's not the brand. It's not anywhere outside of Michigan.
Cool.
Yeah, but they give out free popcorn on Tuesdays, so it's pretty cool.
And I will tell you, AMC, they kind of suck at their convention center. Like they have this long, almost airport line for the convention, for the conventions.
Concessions, you mean?
Concessions. My bad. Sorry. I feel like a dumbass. But Regal Theaters, I mean, the Warren Theaters here in Wichita, that's used to been like a big name here. Now they're owned by Regal Cinema. Even under the ownership of Regal Cinema, they're pretty, at least relative and compared to AMC, streamlined for the concessions.
Gotcha.
What else to say about this movie?
Other things I gotta really praise this movie for, its sense of scale to this world was really fantastic. I haven't seen anything like it in a movie in a while, where I was just wowed by how big this movie feels.
Oh yeah, and for as few as sets that they shown throughout this movie, it still felt pretty big. The areas did.
Like, how long is the movie in terms of the hours? Like, is it 3 hours or?
It's about 2.5 hours, and it's Dune Part 1, so it pretty much has no ending. It pretty much just kind of stops in the middle of the book. There's not much really resolution to anything. That's why I was talking about. It's kind of hard to grade this movie on its own because it's essentially half a movie.
Right.
But they had no choice in doing it that way because Dune is too big to make into one movie, and they can't release a 5-hour movie. So what else?
I mean, they released like the Justice League in 4 hours, so it's entirely possible, I guess.
I mean, that the Snyder Cut, though, that was HBO Max, so people were able to like pause it at their own leisure. Is the difference,
right? Plus, 4 hours would still be short for a Dune movie. I said like even like the 5-hour runtime they seem to be going, it still leaves a shit ton from the books. Out. Like you could make like 3-hour movies based on that novel, and you'd still have a lot of stuff cut out. It's a really big book.
Yep. Messiah is a lot shorter, isn't it?
Messiah is shorter. It's about 2/3 the length. It's significantly shorter, but even it's still a pretty decent sized novel.
Children of Dune. How long is that one?
Slightly shorter than the original, and God Emperor is about the same length.
Okay.
Wait, so it's a series of books then?
Yes.
Yeah, Frank Herbert wrote 6 novels. The last one was published in 1985. He planned on writing a 7th novel to conclude it, but the following year he was dead.
Rip.
Yes.
There's one thing that I actually want to mention since that we're here, Loudmouth. One criticism that I remember you mentioning, be it on the Twitter group chat or wherever, was that you said that you were afraid that the star casting for this movie, like Dave Bautista, Jason Momoa, Oscar Isaac, and Josh Brolin, they were going to like pretty much steal the limelight of Timothée Chalamet as Paul Atreides.
I don't think I made that. I don't think I've ever made that criticism.
Well, no, you did not say the criticism like in post of the movie being released. You just said that you're concerned of that being a thing.
I don't know if I ever made that criticism, but I don't think it's the case. No.
Well, yeah, I mean, the way that it panned out, in no ways did the star casting like steal from the focusing in on Paul Atreides.
Yeah,
like
plus
character.
half of those guys are dead by the end of this movie.
Right.
So
I mean,
but we have a whole bunch of characters that from the novel that haven't been introduced yet that are saving for part 2.
Like the big name actors are just mostly supposed to attract all the newcomers for Dune. And by the time that you get into watching the movie, you legitimately get invested into Paul Atreides. I gotta say that I was pretty concerned and whatnot invested in the character arc and the character that was Paul in this movie. Right. I got more invested into him than in the David Lynch version, especially.
Right. I actually liked Paul in the David Lynch version. I mean, he gave a good performance, but it was just kind of some of the stupid things that Lynch added to it. Like the end where it starts raining on Arrakis was stupid as fuck. That ruined the whole movie.
Okay, so a quick question for somebody who haven't seen any of the books or, seen the old movies. Like, what would you recommend first, reading the books or going to the 80s movies and the new one? Or how does it work for you guys?
New one. I definitely recommend the new one. Don't watch the 80s movie before seeing this. It'll taint everything. The book, I wouldn't say read. I mean, reading the book first would be nice, but it's a long read. So I'd say see the movie first.
Yeah, it's a long read, and plus theater releases are only so long.
Yeah, unless you're like a super fast reader, then read the books first.
You mean watch the movie first?
I said you read the books first if you can read like super duper fast, like you just flip through the pages.
No, I cannot. It takes me a while to
short circuit or something. Otherwise, see the movie.
Okay.
Speaking of short circuit, all those Dune-verse people, they would be killing Johnny Five from Short Circuit in a heartbeat.
Yeah, exactly. It's a religious commandment. Yes, you see like even owning a computer as powerful as a pocket calculator is punishable by death in the Imperium.
I gotta
God
ask.
damn.
I gotta ask. Like, what is one of your favorite parts in the movie, Loudmouth?
I mean, Duncan Idaho fighting off the Legion of Sardaukar was fucking awesome, and or the scene when the sandworm's on its way was also really terrifying. You see it off in the distance, and the sound design when this monster's on its way is really tense. Then you just see it just engulf that whole factory.
You're talking about the harvester?
Yeah, the factory harvester. Yeah.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, the worm just rises from. It doesn't like in the 2000 miniseries. The worm kind of like a whale lunges its head out of the sand, then dives back in. But it doesn't do that in this movie. It didn't do it in the book either, though. The book, it doesn't say the worm ever does anything like that.
Yeah, I mean, according to the book and whatnot, the worms, they more typically just poke their mouth out only barely to the surface to swallow whatever is up there that they want to eat. They don't like typically go taking their entire head out of the sand.
Well, I always love that shot of the worm doing that from the old miniseries. And the CGI is like really terrible by today's standards in the 2000 miniseries version, but it still was a really awesome shot. Them just standing there and they just see this massive creature rise out of the sand with that gaping mouthful of the sharp teeth and then dive.
Oh wait. So there was an adaptation in the 2000s of a TV show.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
Wow.
This is the third adaptation of Dune. There was the David Lynch's movie in 1984, and then in the year 2000 there was the Sci-Fi Channel produced a miniseries.
Oh, the Sci-Fi. Oh god.
Was that the thing that you watched?
It was much closer to the book than the Lynch movie, and at the moment it's the best complete adaptation of Dune that exists because. Again, this movie is only half the book, so until part 2 comes out, the miniseries the Sci-Fi Channel produces the most complete adaptation of the story.
Yeah, plus the miniseries, like they got some of the Children of Dune a book as well, right?
Well, that was a sequel miniseries that came out a couple years later, but yeah.
First thing, Tyler?
That's interesting because usually when I think about the Sci-Fi Channel, I just think about those Sharknado movies.
This was before that. The around 2004, they kind of like changed their business model to produce like cheaper content and reality shows and what have you. But like in the late 90s and early 2000s, they actually were committed to producing like legit sci-fi content.
Yeah.
And that miniseries actually was one of their best programs. I think it was one of their most successful. It's about 4.5 hours long in total. Well, 6 hours when you include the commercials, and it goes through the entire novel, and it's much more faithful and more detailed than what Lynch put out. Since of course she had twice the runtime, so it gives you a more faithful ending. But due to the low budget, its special effects are, if anything, worse than the Lynch movie, even though it came out 16 years later. I use more like cheap computer effects, whereas Lynch's movie used more big budget practical effects.
Yeah, I was gonna say because usually like in the 80s movies they use more practical effects in comparison to CGI or something.
Yeah, like the worms were done as like practical puppet models in Lynch's movie, and I think they hold up much better than the the worms in the 2000 miniseries. They look like something from a modern video game, pretty much.
Excuse me,
but that's to be expected. It came out 2 decades ago, you know. But whereas the whole series was made on a budget of only $20 million, which not a lot of money for a story as big as Dune. Imagine if Lord of the Rings movies were made for $20 million each; they wouldn't be as impressive.
Oh yeah, heck no! You couldn't like get all the live action actual people like. Participating in all those mock fights, like the Charge of the Rohirrim, the battles at Helm's Deep, and so
all that shit costs money.
Yep.
So, basically, for the miniseries, just had to do a story that big and grand, but with a fraction of the budget, and it's faithful to the book. It's pretty good. Most of the performances are nice, but it does look really cheap at times.
It started off James McAvoy's career.
Yeah, well, the sequel did, but yes, yeah, actually, James McAvoy plays his son in Children of Dune, and he actually gives a phenomenal performance in that miniseries. Like people were like, "Damn, this kid could act."
How old was he when he portrayed Leto the Second?
He was in his early 20s, which again is not faithful to the book because if you were following strictly the book, Leto the Second would have been 9 years old during the events of it. But yeah, they're not going to be able to have a kid act the shit out. That was a change they had to make.
I wonder if how Denis Villeneuve will be able to. Well, actually, he doesn't plan to actually be the director of Children of Dune when Warner Brothers green lights that kind of a sequel. I know that Denis Villeneuve.
It'll take a long time before the series gets to that if they green light him that far. Like,
yeah, he plans to
make part 2 will be at least 2 years away, possibly 3 or 4. So, and then Dune Messiah would give another couple years. Yeah, it'll take a while.
I was told, or I heard that he was only planning to actually do part 2, and then not Children of Dune, Messiah, and then he's going to continue on to other things, which I wouldn't really blame him because typically directors don't want to focus all in on just one singular franchise. They want to broaden their horizons a little bit more on different ideas and whatnot.
Right, but I'm sure they could find someone else who could do a good job.
Speaking about the sequels, I'm still kind of curious if the director of this movie is also going to do a sequel to Blade Runner, because towards the ending of Blade Runner, the new one that came out more recently, it seemed as though the ending was also kind of open ended. So I'm kind of curious if you're going to go back to that series too.
Blade Runner was based on an old Philip K. Dick novel, Do Androids Dream of Electric Sheep? I think that was from the 70s, but it was always kind of a loose adaptation. So I don't think it really adapted the novel much at all. It's mostly just a sequel to the 1982 movie.
Would you like to see all the Dune novels adapted into a movie or into his own anthology anyways, based off of this movie?
Oh, I would absolutely love that. Whether it'll happen or not, who knows?
Right. Jason Momoa would be able to reprise his role as Duncan Idaho.
Yes, forever.
For some strange reason, I keep thinking about him as Aquaman. So,
oh yeah, that's probably one thing that I got to give props to Jason Momoa is because it did not feel like Aquaman in this movie. No. It felt like a completely different character. So the props to Jason on that.
He fights out. Yeah, he's like the best swordsman in the galaxy in this movie.
And also Josh Brolin playing as Gurney Halleck.
Right. And another thing that needs to be established though, why swordsmen would be necessary is everyone in this universe is these personal shields that protect you from fast moving objects. So shooting somebody, you'll just deflect off them. So the most efficient way to kill somebody in the Dune universe, just get up and stab them.
Yeah. So, I got a question about that, by the way. I mean, the original purpose of the creation of the shields was to protect the wearers from projectile weaponry. But the thing is, they have these sleeper darts that they still go shooting at people. Like that one part of where that Leto the First was, just tending to the one killed off Fremen girl, and he gets shot in the back with a sleeper dart. How? I mean, how exactly does that work?
Provided enough protection that if he was able to get it off, he had time to, but he wasn't able to.
Right. And I got to notice that I was kind of impressed with the effects for when the giant missiles were being shot down at the Atreides base and ships and whatnot. Like the way that they just, when they hit the shields, they just sort of slowed down a little bit. But as soon as they hit their actual target, it just had an explosion that was underneath the shield. And as soon as the shield broke, then the explosion just went upward. It was quite unique to actually witness. It was about the most unique kind of explosion that I've seen ever since the first Matrix movie. With the part with the helicopter. I thought it was pretty cool.
It all looked really cool. Definitely, definitely the best adaptation of that whole sequence, that whole genocide that was ever done on screen. Well, it has the advantage of modern technology. The previous versions didn't have, and a much bigger budget.
You know, I gotta say, speaking of actors and how impressed we are with them, I gotta say that Oscar Isaac, who's a whole lot more stoic playing as Leto the First, as
Which is
compared
what
to
you want from the character. That's how he was in the book.
right. I mean, he was able to put away his Poe persona and actually act as a Duke in this movie.
Right.
And one of
There's
my
also a
favorite
great
parts.
moment early on with where he talks about like when his father didn't gave him the dukedom, and how he learned to accept it. It really was a great moment between father and son that really helped develop their relationship.
Yeah, that was probably one of my favorite parts. Was his his dialogue at the beginning of the movie with Paul, and also his dialogue with Jessica as well. I also like the entire interactions between Jessica and Paul. It was pretty believable. Like she was stern, but at the same time still loving and very concerned with Paul. Like the one part when they were on the Thopter and they were captured by the Harkonnens. They how that she was trying to tutor him in how to properly do the voice.
Do the voice, yeah. 'Cause- yeah, they had her mouth gagged so she couldn't, and they were trying to rape her, and he's like, "Do the voice." It's kind of like it's almost like very similar to the Jedi mind trick. I think it's something George Lucas borrowed from Dune.
Perhaps. I mean, was he at all a Dune enthusiast?
Actually, yes, he actually admitted that he took inspiration from Dune when he wrote Star Wars.
Ah,
I mean,
cool.
he took inspiration from like a lot of movies, particularly
Yeah,
like the
yeah,
world.
he did, but Dune was one of them that he took inspiration from.
Yep. And one thing that really got me invested was one part of where that they were in the tent and Paul, as he was just sniffing the raw, unrefined spice that was just floating about in the air, he was inhaling that and whatnot. He was starting to get all these premonitions and all these visions of the future of how there was going to be massive genocides done in his name by all of his loyal, zealous followers.
Yes.
And it just comes to a point of where that he goes like insane almost, and Jessica tries to embrace him to comfort him, and he was all like, "Get off me!"
Right.
As he
There's
properly does the voice on her.
there's almost a lot of parallels between like Paul's journey throughout it and like the Prophet Muhammad of Islam, kind of. He like how he ignites like a holy war.
I don't know about I don't know of that, but I just wanted to say like as soon as that moment happened, I was all like, "Damn!"
Yeah.
When I first watched it.
Yeah, you see, and also the way it shows his premonitions were very good. Like there's like a scene with Jamis and him as friends, and of course later they're revealed to be enemies later, which doesn't make sense at first. But then you have to remember, the way Paul sees the future. He's seeing not really the future exactly as it happens, but he sees many alternate possible futures. So like he was seeing a possible future where him and Jamis were friends, but that's not the future that he got.
Yeah. And then his son, Leto II, was able to see even more possible futures, even further into the future.
Right. Because there's another great Leto II quote. Long-term plans are ultimately short-term when measured against the vastness of time.
Right.
Yeah, this is set 20,000 years in the future, but which is 4 times longer than all of written human history. Or all of like the earliest human writings that we have like definable narratives on are around 5,000 years old. This is set 4 times that far into the future.
Yeah, and it's quite epic. I go listening and re-listening to the introduction or the vast history summations that Quinn's Ideas does. It's like a 20-minute video where that he goes like explaining the timeline of the entire Duneverse, like starting all the way back from the times of the Roman Empire, because he explains that the Atreides, they're able to trace their bloodlines to the Roman emperors. And then the first scattering, the first whatever the term was that he said, of where that humans started to colonize the solar system and all that stuff.
So I think it was they said 10 to 12,000 years before the founding of the guild. Well, that's another thing. It says at the beginning that it's set in the year 10,191, and like most laymen will probably look at that and think, oh, it's set about 8,000 years from now. But that's
Nope.
10,191 years after the formation of the guild, and the Spacing Guild was founded somewhere between 10 to 12,000 years after the earliest human space flights, aka the 20th century.
Right.
So it's that so that would place Dune sometime around 21,000 years from now.
Yep.
Give or take a few centuries.
Which can be kind of confusing because of the fact that this universe does take place, or at least, it takes place in the quote unquote real world. I mean, it starts off in the real world and then it works its way into the future. So it can get a little bit confusing in that way because they're not doing the traditional AD, BC, or BC and BCE. Not its own complete and utter fictional universe. Whereas Frank Herbert, he was doing like a prediction on what he thinks that humanity will be like in the far future, right?
I don't know if it was quite his prediction. It was more just kind of like his like universe was a vessel to talk about his ideas on things like religion, ecology, institutions. It was basically kind of like a vessel, a fantasy world he created in the far distant future to like talk about those ideas.
Right. There's one chat comment on my end, by the way, from a guy named Phantom Lord DJ H07. At least David Lynch read Dune. And I'm thinking to myself, is that really true?
Actually, it's not. Well, David Lynch actually did not read Dune prior to being given the job as director.
Oh, that's like the worst because.
Yeah,
like,
and I'm not entirely convinced that he read it after. Well, that's the thing about David Lynch. He's a talented filmmaker. He has made some really good movies, but science fiction just wasn't his thing. And I don't think I'm being too harsh on that because Lynch has agreed with me on that point several times. He pretty much seems to regret having ever made Dune. He said that science fiction just wasn't his thing.
Right. I mean, it was pretty much just a ploy and a puppeteering by his for the corporation that he was working for at the time, right?
Right.
Or it would have been.
Yeah, because normally when I think about David Lynch, I think about those sort of experimental films. So, I'm not really sure it was going to work well with sci-fi.
I think he was trying to fuse a little bit too much of Star Wars and Star Trek and that kind of feel into this.
And like he adds a lot of really weird shit that's like not in the book. Like let's see, there's a scene where they drink blood, where they drink a bug juice, where they crushes a bug and like fade right. And well, no, it was the Beast Raban is like drinking it. There's these heart plugs that they put the Harkonnens put in their slaves. There's the scene where there's a plot in the book where like Tufir Harat, the Atreides Mentat is held captive by the Harkonnens, and they poison him, but then they like would feed him the antidote every day to keep him alive, like put it in his soup every day. That was a plot line in the book. Lynch includes that, but for some fucked up reason, he has them milking the antidote out of a cat. Why is that in the movie? I have no fucking idea.
Right. I mean, what movies is David Lynch known for?
He was known for like the Elephant Man.
The Elephant Man.
I'd never seen that movie.
That's a great movie.
Known for like the Eraserman guy, Eraserhead, whatever. Yeah.
I barely even know if I even heard of it.
Yeah, the Elephant Man. It's an adaptation of the real life story of Joseph Merrick. He was a man in the late 1800s from Britain who he had this skin condition that caused his skin to grow, which gave him kind of a really horrible, monstrous appearance. It's a very sad story. That's why he was known as the Elephant Man, because his skin like would pack on, would grow like uncontrollably. So he had like these strange, horrible welts that gave him like an elephant-like appearance.
Right.
Yeah, David Lynch kind of made a movie about it. It's a very hard to watch movie. It's a tragic and sad story. So David Lynch is a talented filmmaker. He's not a hack. He has talent. It's just that wasn't where his talent is at.
All right. I remember in the last live stream that I had you on Loudmouth that we were just joking about how he was the very first furry because of the fact that he included cats and dogs just out of nowhere. I mean, especially the cat.
Yeah, the cat thing, I can't defend that. That is fucking weird. I don't know why he put that there. I guess he was kind of, since the Harkonnens were the villains, he was trying to make the audience like grossed out by them. He wanted to make them as gross as possible.
And it's by milking cats that he did that.
Yeah, and he also gave the Baron these welts all over his face in that movie. Even though the Baron didn't have welts or on his face, he was just really, really fat.
Yeah, you didn't have to put welts on his face. Just make him like disgustingly obese and wrinkly from the fat.
Right. He's disgustingly obese and he's a maniacally evil psychopath.
I gotta say that in this movie, they definitely nailed down the disgustingly obese factor of the Baron. Whereas in the David Lynch version, he looked like mildly plump, but not that
he was pretty fat in that version too. But this is what the Baron should be. The way he's like draped in shadow during his opening, the menacing tone he has. All right, this is the Baron that Frank Herbert described.
This is my Dune, my Arrakis.
Yeah. He has some menace, some threat to him in this movie. Which you did not get in Lynch's movie. Lynch's movie was just kind of seemed like a cackling mental case.
What about my family? You said I could meet them again. I said you could join them in the afterlife. Shit.
Yeah, but again, I so hate that he doesn't say that line. Never trust a traitor. Not even one you create. Not even one you created. Exactly. I love that line. I was bummed that he didn't say it out loud because he did in the miniseries. He says that line out loud.
Right.
Never trust a traitor. Not even one you created.
One other thing. I mean, since we're talking about the Harkonnens, I mean, did they even have like cult-like blood drawing and atonement in the David Lynch version? Because that's what they had in this version. I thought that was very creepy and very occult-like.
Well, actually, that was the Sardaukar in this version. Yeah, it was the Sardaukar who were like rubbing the blood of people. Yeah, I don't remember that in the book. The Lynch version gave him like these heart plugs that on their slaves, and he has this fetish for like pulling them out and watching them bleed to death, which wasn't in the book. He was a slave driver. He was a pedophile in the book, but he didn't do that.
Right. I actually do remember that one part of the David Lynch movie where he like just is like cackling and whatnot, and then suddenly he gets this menacing look in his eye, and he just floats closer to one of the servants and is all like, I'm gonna kill you. I'm gonna let me get real close to your face and pull the plug on you.
Yeah. You don't have the sense that this guy is smart enough to have the plans within plans to like rise to such a prominent place in the Imperium.
Oh yeah.
I mean, the Lynch version of the Baron, you're like, this guy needs to be in a straitjacket.
Pretty much. Well, you probably want even the new Baron in a straitjacket as well, but he doesn't make it as outwardly obvious, anyways.
Right.
Like if this was just like a regular Joe Schmo politician in our real world, he could probably pull it off enough to like come off like, I don't know, a Chris Christie sort of politician.
Yeah.
Chris Christie is the real world Baron Harkonnen, everybody.
I did the joke that this movie should have cast movie Blob as the Baron Vladimir Harkonnen.
Yeah, because he's an apologist for cuties. Therefore, it's not too far of a stretch from portraying having him play as an outright pedophile.
Yeah, sadly, though, he wasn't able to get the part, but they did give him a cameo as a sandworm.
Wasn't there some memes of where that Matt Damon was going to gain like or was it
That was
Brad
Christian
Pitt?
Bale was the joke.
Oh yeah, Christian Bale like gains 4,000 pounds to play as the Sandworm.
No, it was the headline was that Christian Bale to gain 20,000 tons to play the part of the Sandworm in the remake of Dune.
Yep.
That's funny, but it was like it was a parody site Hard Drive that came up with that one.
So there is that part of the Harkonnens in the older Dune movie of how that the Baron himself would pull the plug on his servants on occasion. Actually, I remember what exactly I was wanting to ask. The Sardaukar, are those like exclusively Imperial soldiers? They did not fall under House Harkonnen?
Yeah, they're Imperial soldiers, and that's a big plot point. Was the Sardaukar's involvement was something the Emperor tried to conceal because, one thing the Emperor feared was that if all the royal houses of the Landsford, if they combined all their forces together, their combined power would exceed his own. So he wanted to make this fight seem to the rest of the royal houses that this was just one royal house on another. This was just the Harkonnens versus the Atreides, and he had no involvement. That's the way he tried to portray, which was, of course, was a lie. He was involved. The Sardaukar were his troops.
I wonder how in part 2 they're going to be they're going to handle the cover up of the Emperor Shaddam.
Well, I'm sure he'll appear in part 2. I actually thought it was a good idea to have him be mentioned in this movie, but never shown. Like his presence weighs over it, but he's not seen. Kind of like the way Emperor Palpatine is never shown in the original Star Wars,
right?
Even though he is mentioned.
Grand Moff Tarkin, or like, the Imperial Senate shall be of no more concern. The Emperor has dissolved it.
Yes. Oh, so I got Iron Dave in the chat says, Dune is too much sand. Exactly. That's why they didn't cast Hayden Christensen in this movie.
Hayden Christensen starring as Paul Atreides in Dune.
Yeah, that was why they offered him a role as the Sandworm, but he had to turn it down. Yeah.
Actually, now that we're talking about actors, who do you think would be appropriate to play as Thade Harkonnen or Thade Rafa, whatever his last name is?
That's a tough one. I don't know. Who do you think would be?
I've no clue. I don't really I don't think I really know enough about him. I mean, I'm gonna be honest. Like, you know the Harkonnen Mentat character that you keep on mentioning?
Piter.
What?
Piter.
Piter?
Yes.
Okay. At first, when I saw the trailers for Dune, I thought Piter was supposed to be Thade, but no, I was wrong.
That's a different character. Yeah, Thade is just not in this movie. Though he definitely has to be in part 2 because his fight with Paul is like totally critical to the book's whole plot.
Right. I mean, the plot is that originally the Bene Gesserit wanted the Lady Jessica to breed or procreate a female that could be married to Thade, right?
That was the original plan, but Jessica went against them and to give Duke Leto a son.
You know,
and yeah, she can control. She actually can mentally control whether she has a son or a daughter.
Ah, okay.
So I know that's something women in the real world can't do, but she can.
Oh man, the SJWs would go crazy for that shit. Right?
Yeah.
What was I going to mention? Yeah, I almost forgot about that. That it was mentioned in the movie, and of course, multiple parts in the books and by Quinn's ideas in his videos. That the Bene Gesserit could like manipulate their own biology,
right?
Their own bodies down to the molecular level.
Yeah, but yeah, they wanted the daughter to like marry Thade, but that's not what happened. Thade isn't shown in this movie, but his brother Raban, the Beast Raban, is played by Dave Bautista. Hey, Lonely Wolf, how's it going?
You know what? I would really like to see of how that they handle the Reverend Mother finding out that Jessica had taken spice while bearing a female, while bearing a what's her face. What's the daughter's name? What is the sister's name again?
Which daughter? What?
Paul's sister. What's her name again?
Aaliyah. Yeah.
Right, Leah. I would like to see of how that they handle that with Reverend Mother's reaction to it.
Because she'd be only like 3 or 4 by the end of the next movie. Yeah, and they'll have the whole Sardaukar raid where she's in front of the Emperor. Which yes, she was captured in a Sardaukar raid. She didn't just walk into the fucking Emperor's council like she did in Lynch's movie, because that would have been fucking stupid.
Right. Wait, so in the whole timeline of the second half of the book, it takes place, it's like 4 years long?
Yeah, I'd say the book's entire timeline is about 4 years long. The first 2/3 are roughly are over a pretty short period of time, like less than a year, and then there's like a 3-year time jump after Leah's born.
And that whole time, Paul is trying to lead the Fremen so as to sabotage the Harkonnens that have retaken Arrakis.
Yeah, he's going native, learning how to live amongst the Fremen, learn how to ride the sandworms, yada yada.
Cool.
Yeah, that's another thing for part 2 is we get to see Paul ride the worm.
Yeah, we only got a very brief glimpse of that, and it was like at the, was it the Bear End?
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, it was, I don't know, for some reason, it's a kind of, I don't know why, but for some reason, it's kind of fuzzy to me, because I thought I remembered it, like, ending off at night, but when I think of that shot, I think of it, like, being in the day of when that we see the sandworm rider.
Yeah, I remember the scene where Paul first rides a worm in Lynch's movie, and for Lynch's movie's problems, that was a really well done scene. By the standards of 80s special effects, they did a fantastic job when Paul first rides the sandworm.
Yep.
And I really like that there's a sense that he's actually on something, in this beast like has power. Like when he puts like the rod between its what do they call them? Its segments of its body. And he really has to pull it up. You sense that this thing's armor is really thick and really powerful.
Yep. One other thing that just came to my mind. Do you think that Josh Brolin as Gurney was a whole lot better than Patrick Stewart?
I'm not going to say that. Josh Brolin just kind of got better screen time, but in terms of who's the better actor, I don't know. Patrick Stewart's a great actor.
Yeah, I have a cousin who actually watched the older Dune movie, and she was all like, to me, Patrick Stewart will always be Gurney. It's like apparently Patrick Stewart holds a very close part in her heart, apparently.
He was Captain Picard. Captain Picard holds a place in every sci-fi fan's heart. Captain Picard is just like a god among men. He's the quintessential captain.
Would you say that
actually came out before Next Generation did? That was before that.
Oh, really?
Yeah, so he wasn't Captain Picard yet.
Wow. What was I gonna say? Like, would you say that Patrick Stewart is like one of your top 10 favorite all-time actors?
I don't know if I'd go that far, because he's definitely made some decisions lately that I don't really agree with. But as the character of Captain Picard, he was perfectly cast, and he really made that character essential.
Mm-hmm. And even in a overall piece of crap like David Lynch, he was like one of the better parts of that in your mind, it seems.
Oh yeah, he had barely any screen time. He was barely a character, but he still made the best of every minute. The guy could read a phone book and still be interesting.
Imagine that in Stewart's accent.
So someone's asking me my opinion of Godzilla versus Kong. I liked it. It was bonkers as hell. It didn't make much sense, and some of the side characters were annoying. But I still thought, but I still got a kick out of it.
Yeah, my personal thought about that movie as well, exactly like yours. I liked it a lot because it was just goofy fun. So
It was.
I like
It
that.
was, it was absolutely great, goofy fun.
Pretty
The-
much. I will
that-
say that of the human characters, the only one that really stuck out to me and was entertaining to watch was the one conspiracy theorist radio host guy.
I agree with
honestly,
you.
I didn't really like that guy. He kind of annoyed me.
Okay, who annoyed you more, him or the RC tweens from Bayformers 2?
Definitely the Bay Farmers one. Oh, definitely. But the thing is, the original King Kong versus Godzilla also was a really silly as hell movie. This is pretty much just as silly, but with better special effects. That's it.
It's like a B movie with a better budget and better special effects.
Right.
Kind of like how you feel about Kong Skull Island, right?
Pretty much.
Exactly. It's just pretty much the modern day B movie with better special effects. But it was like a lot of fun. I really enjoyed it.
Right. I had a lot. I definitely preferred it over King of the Monsters, just because it gave you fights in the sunlight.
Yeah, the cinematography was too damn dark.
Yeah, the
in King of the
cinematography in
Monsters.
King of the Monsters kind of sucked, so kind of ruined that. But Godzilla versus Kong greatly improved on that fact. And I hated that plot line in King of the Monsters where they reignite Godzilla with a nuclear bomb, because nuclear bombs going off should never be a positive thing in a Godzilla movie. That kind of annoyed the piss out of me in that. So just for those two reasons, Godzilla versus Kong was significantly a better movie than King of the Monsters.
With the in-lore universal logic, though, doesn't it make sense, though?
Yeah, I've already reviewed Ghostbusters 2016. I made that 5 years ago. I did it as a Steve Shives parody a long time ago.
Oh god, that name. That's been like a long time since I heard about
Yes,
this name.
I should say he who must not be named. Yes.
But it doesn't. I mean, I know in a meta commentary sense that it was a bad idea, or it would kind of annoy a Godzilla enthusiast. The fact that they use a nuke to power up Godzilla a little bit more so as to make him more powerful against King Ghidorah. But with the in-universe logic and lore, doesn't it kind of make sense? I mean, isn't that part of Godzilla's powers and
to
abilities?
me, it kind of, how can I explain it? I don't think it makes much sense, but I don't think the movie's supposed to make much sense anyway, so I just took it for what it was.
Right. Well, Godzilla feeds on radiation. He doesn't really literally feed on the kinetic heat of a nuclear blast. So
a
that's
nuke
silly,
also puts off
even by
radiation.
Godzilla movie standards.
So I guess they could have got a whole bunch of uranium isotopes and just brought a full crate of them close enough to Godzilla and he eats them or whatever. That would have solved the problem with fighting off King Ghidorah.
Maybe, yeah, but it was just a messy movie. It was kind of disappointing, but not terrible or anything, but just could have been better.
Let's see. Have you
I'll
seen
agree.
Jurassic Park movies and the Netflix series Jurassic Park? No, I haven't seen the Netflix series, but I've seen the movies though.
I did not like the second Jurassic World.
Yeah, it didn't make a whole lot of sense.
It was kind of so to me.
Yeah, the whole plot line of breeding a dinosaur to kill something you point a laser at is one of the dumbest plot lines in motion picture history. If you have a laser pointed at something, why the fuck don't you just shoot it?
I cannot name one
Wouldn't that be a million times more efficient?
Yeah. Bring a cruise missile to where you're pointing the laser at.
It's called a gun. We've had that for a long time.
Yeah.
It says in the comment section down here, I hope MonsterVerse Son of Kong feature albino Kong like the original Son of Kong from 1933.
I don't know if they're going to make Son of Kong. They just said they want to do another MonsterVerse movie, but at the moment, they don't have the rights to keep Godzilla from Toho. If they want to keep making Godzilla movies in this universe, they have to make another deal with Toho. Whereas Kong, they don't need to make a deal with Toho. So if Toho doesn't let them, they might just make a Kong movie.
Wait, but what do you guys think about that little short that was on YouTube for Gamera versus Godzilla?
You're talking about the death battle short?
No. There was actually a Japanese artist who made like a CGI battle with Kong and Gamera.
I haven't seen that. I have seen the death battle video for that though, for that matchup. And I thought that the death battle matchup, it was interesting. I watched it just for the sake of watching it. I'm not a big old kaiju fan or anything like that.
And now he's
I know
asking
that
about the anime trilogy and Singular Point. Singular Point was one of the most incomprehensible series I've ever seen. It was so goddamn tedious with
It is like really, really complex.
Yes. What the fuck are you making a Godzilla cartoon this complex? I'm like, I felt like I should have been taking notes, like I was like it's homework.
Godzilla and complex. How do those two words come together?
I'm honestly baffled by that one. But we're a bit off topic. This stream was about Dune.
Yeah, I mean, I kind of thought that we were running a little bit dry on that bit, anyways. But personally, but was there something more that we wanted to say about Dune?
What should I say about Dune? Hold on, I got a private message.
All right, I will watch that later. Thanks for sharing that.
What's more that we didn't talk about when it comes?
Well, I just learned that it was a book series. I learned that there was a movie from the 1980s. I learned that there was a TV show, and I learned that there's a movie today. So, yay! A lot of stuff to do.
We learned a lot.
Cool.
But yeah, we probably have mostly like run out on Dune, haven't we?
I guess one thing that I could say is that the costumes. I really like the costumes. Like I cannot remember the costumes being all that high quality for the David Lynch movie. There was the mini gunner characters that they had for the Harkonnens in the David Lynch movie.
Actually, the costumes were all right in the Lynch movie. It was the mini series that had shitty costumes. Those look like they were purchased from a Halloween store.
Wow, that bad, huh?
They're pretty bad. And another thing the mini series did terribly was the whole blue within blue eyes thing. They glow in this really weird and unnatural way there. And for some reason, their blue within blue eyes seems to disappear when they turn their heads to the side. It was really bad.
Yeah. One thing I can really appreciate about the Villeneuve version is that they actually look like that their blood was blue.
Yeah, blue like within blue. Herbert doesn't describe their eyes as glowing. It just says their eyes have a blue within blue color. So the whole glowing thing is wrong. This movie did it so much better.
Was it because that Lynch was trying to get them to glow, or was it because that Lynch had such a low budget that he did not know any other way to do it?
No, it was the mini series I'm talking about, not Lynch's one. Where they really glowed. Though they glowed a bit in Lynch's movie too. But the one where they disappear when they turn their head to the side, that was the mini series. The budget was so low. Lynch's movie actually had a pretty big budget. It cost $42 million. That was a lot of money in the 80s.
Okay.
And yet inflation, that's over $100 million in today's money.
And yet they still could not get a faithful adaptation.
Well, yeah, funny thing is Ridley Scott was actually attached to direct a Dune movie. And he wanted to break into 2 movies the way Villeneuve did later in the late 70s. And he teamed up with H.R. Geiger to create monstrous designs for the sandworms. So after that, though, the movie fell apart, but he met H.R. Geiger there, and the two of them worked together on their next project, Alien. So we can kind of think a failed Dune adaptation for the existence of Alien.
I thought H.R. Geiger was the writer for a book that the Alien movie was based off of.
No, it wasn't based on a book, but he designed the alien itself. He was kind of like he drew really trippy and weird art, and he drew the xenomorph alien that they used as the design. It's his twisted mind that came up with that fucked up thing.
I wonder if somebody took inspiration from him for Dark Souls.
Right.
That's some really fucked up shit there.
Yeah, you should see some of his designs for the sandworms. They would have looked even freakier and weirder than they looked in this movie.
I mean, imagine if Ridley Scott back in the 70s did like an R-rated version of Dune.
It actually could have been really well if they split it into 2 movies. I think with enough of a budget, they could have done decent effects in the 70s.
And this would have been like when that Ridley Scott was still good. Like it seems that Ridley Scott is becoming more and more kind of hit and miss, it seems.
I'll say definitely hit and miss. I don't think he's totally lost his talent, but he has had misfires. I don't know if any of you watched my review of Exodus: Gods and Kings, but he botched that.
Oh, I've watched that like 3 times, dude. It's one of your favorite reviews of mine.
Yeah, how he fucked that whole story up to high heaven. No pun intended.
You don't have to be a Christian in order to appreciate the Exodus story.
Yeah, it's a classic story, and Ridley Scott just like did such a soulless job on it, you know?
Really soulless. Like the relationship between Ramses and Moses is like completely non-existent.
Yeah, almost. And like I'll see these same scenes done in the Ten Commandments or in the Prince of Egypt. They're just so heartfelt and powerful, and then they're done in Ridley Scott's movie. Like, this is boring.
Yeah, I mean, was there really much of a relationship between the two of them in the old what's his face
Testament?
Ten Commandments?
No, pretty much no. There's no indication in the Bible that they were like raised as brothers.
Well, yeah, no, I know that much, but I'm talking about in the old 10 Commandments movie.
No, not really, because
I can't remember what the name of the actor was.
Yulbur?
George C. Scott?
No, Charlton Heston was Moses.
Charlton Heston, yeah, that's the name that gets thrown around every time somebody says 10 Commandments. They're like, the Charlton Heston 10 Commandments.
I actually think the Prince of Egypt is like the best. Not only is it the best Exodus movie, it's one of the best movies ever made. It really is like the definitive adaptation of that story.
Right.
And the music, the animation, it's just magnificent.
It's been like years since I've seen The Prince of Egypt, actually. The last time I saw it was literally when I was a kid.
Yeah.
I can't remember when I last watched it, but I definitely ought to rewatch it again just for nostalgia's sake. And especially since I keep on watching reviews of the damn movie.
Yeah. It's a gorgeous flick. It did everything so well, but
that was like back when like DreamWorks actually did animation, not CGI.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You want to know what's insane? The recent sequel to Boss Baby, which was a piece of crap, there's a scene where they're having this annoying as fuck like cartoony like action scenes where everyone's like zipping around, and then they go into a movie theater within the movie, and a guy is watching Spirit Stallion of the Cimarron on the screen, and they crash through the screen. I'm like, what the fuck are you trying to say, DreamWorks? Are you like, hey, remember when we used to make good animated movies? Well, fuck you.
Yeah, some of their movies used to have been like a combination of CG and 2D animation. So Prince of Egypt, budget was 70 million, box office was 218.6 million. So it's a tidy enough profit.
Yeah, it was relatively successful. Sadly, later ones, The Road to El Dorado and the Sinbad movie were not successful. That's why they haven't made a hand-drawn movie in a while. But it's a shame because all those movies were pretty good.
Yeah, right. I believe it was like with Shrek, they started to make more and more CGI movies.
Yeah, because Shrek made a lot more money, yeah.
Right. And they've been like going off of that formula ever since. Instead of doing something a little bit more heartfelt, like taking the Prince of Egypt formula, well, instead they decided to go with the Shrek formula, the Shrek mold.
Ultimately, the movie-going public, are kind of more at fault there because a lot of times there's like some really great heartfelt animated movies that are just flops at the box office. Well, a lot of terrible, like low-effort crap seems to make a ton of money, and I'm like, what the fuck's going on, man?
It's idiocracy.
Yeah, it really does. Like most of Illumination Entertainment's movies, I mean, they keep putting out like low effort trash movies, and yet they keep grossing hundreds of millions of dollars in profit. I'm like,
by the way, have you guys seen the cast list for Super Mario Brothers?
I have.
I have seen the cast list. We made a joke in a private chat. The best thing about Chris Pratt being Mario is what it's doing to movie Blop.
Yeah.
I mean, it doesn't make any sense to me whatsoever to not have the original Mario voice as Mario.
No, it doesn't. It's from Illumination Entertainment. It's not going to be good.
Yeah, it is from Illumination, isn't it? So that likely that they're not going to have that incorporated into making the Super Smash Bros. Universe with Pikachu and Sonic.
Yeah.
I'm just joking mostly because there was a meme that I actually saw shared on Facebook one time where they were all like, so we have a Detective Pikachu movie made and a Sonic movie made, and they were actually good. The beginnings of the Super Mario verse have come, or whatever.
Yeah. But like a good example in like 2016, there was my favorite movie that year was one called Coba and the Two Strings. An animated masterpiece, a gorgeous, heartfelt movie, didn't make a cent. It was a box office flop that barely grossed higher than its budget and probably lost money from marketing.
I think the last really great 2D animation movie that I've seen actually came out last year on Netflix, but it was some sort of Santa Claus like origin story, but I forgot the name of
Claus?
it. Yes.
That was pretty good, but did you see Soul?
I don't think so.
I highly recommend Soul. I thought that was pretty good. And well, Pixar actually released two really good movies last year. Soul and Onward were both really good, really damn good.
Yeah. Did you think Luca? How do you think Luca compares to the two of them?
I actually have not seen Luca yet. I'm ashamed to admit.
Oh, it's pretty good. Like pretty dumb fun. Like they have an actual villain there, and I remember like watching Shea Furla Productions review of Luca, and he said that was one of the things he was impressed with Luca is that for once Disney was having an actual villain and not just be some, I don't know, some twist villain or some mysterious evil entity. They have an actual like in your face jerk off of a villain. Like
Cool.
in the typical formula that they used to have, Disney anyways. And he was pretty entertaining.
Yeah, I definitely have made a note to see it. I'm just always like busy with shit, you know?
Oh, it's definitely worth the watch. It's nothing like too thought-provoking in the comparison of, say, Inside Out, Soul, or even Onward or Toy Story 2 or anything like that. Monsters University.
Yeah, I can't think of a single. There's no bad Pixar movies. Even Cars 2, I think, is semi-watchable. I don't think any of Pixar's movies are bad.
I will say that I definitely like that movie less than The Good Dinosaur.
Yeah.
The Good Dinosaur was pretty lame, and there was nothing new with it.
I think the last Pixar movie that I seen was Toy Story 4 at the movie theater. It was okay.
Gotcha. Yeah, that was pretty good too.
It was all right. I did not like it as much as Toy Stories 2 or 3.
I think the best way to end the series was Toy Story 3, to be honest.
I agree.
Yeah.
Though
so it didn't really feel like it was needed, but on its own, it's still a pretty good movie.
Shea Furla's Productions kind of helped change my mind a little bit on my opinion of Toy Story 4 as far as the character arc of Woody himself goes. I still think that Bo Peep should have been handled massively different than what they actually did in Toy Story 4. And and Buzz Lightyear, for fuck's sake. What is with that?
Yeah, they kind of made him into an idiot.
He was always the competent, cool one of the toys. Yet here they made him into a bumbling fool.
I don't know.
He's my favorite character in the previous Toy Stories. They ruined him. Which speaking of which, how do you feel about the idea of a spin-off movie of Lightyear as Pixar has plans to do?
Didn't they already make a spin-off movie about Buzz Lightyear?
No. There was like a TV show that came out like a long time
Buzz
ago.
Lightyear of Star Command.
Yeah, there was that, but they're actually doing a Pixar-produced spin-off of Lightyear. CG animated and all, with Chris Evans voicing as Buzz. Which I really like Tim Allen, but I do have to think that with new generations coming, that Chris Evans, that if he was to like gruffen up his voice a little bit more, that he definitely could pull off a Buzz Lightyear voice.
Right. What I wonder how much they're going to actually borrow from Buzz Lightyear of Star Command, or whether they're just going to completely ignore it.
I think what I heard is that they're going to have it start off in his training days in Buzz Lightyear Star Command, they did not have it start off in his early
They
days.
occasionally like flash back to those days. Well, the thing about Buzz Lightyear Star Command is it was very lighthearted and it didn't take itself seriously. Like the villains in that show were not like the ones in like Batman the Animated Series or Gargoyles, where they're like complex and goes through their origins. Now they're just bad assholes who want to do bad things because they're bad.
Right. Whereas Gargoyles was able to actually pull off complexity real well in the first two
there's no
seasons,
attempt in Buzz Lightyear Star Command. That's fine though. It's meant to be just lighthearted, goofy kids entertainment. Not every kids show needs to be like dark and complex.
Right. Which I gotta say, since we're on this subject, Loudmouth, continue the season 3 Gargoyles reviews.
You know what? I think I actually will.
Cool. Yay!
By the way, what was the last time you uploaded a video?
Not for a while. I kind of just disconnected from the internet just because the internet was becoming too toxic and I couldn't stand it. So I just disconnected and went away from electronic devices for a while and just tried to not check the news or anything because I was like, just the world seemed like it was going fucking nuts for a while.
Yeah, and then
it was going crazy for a while now. So
yeah, that's kind of how it is. I felt for my own mental health, I just needed to disconnect for a while.
Yeah, Loudmouth here kind of fell off the map by early June of last year, and then in August, I had actually messaged him asking, "Hey, Loudmouth, I just check on you." Maybe it was September, something like that, and asking him how he was doing, and just to have a private call with him to sort of catch up, and that was a pretty cool time right there.
Yeah, but I'm like, I was just saying, this world's gone fucking nuts. I can't stand it.
It has, and I wouldn't really blame you for like disconnecting and decide to, I don't know, reconnect with your personal life a little bit more than anything.
That was pretty much it. That's all it was.
Mm-hmm.
I need it because for my own mental health, I need to just get away from it all.
I will say in about 7 minutes, I probably ought to get off and like stop streaming.
All right. Well, I think we'll conclude then. Thank you everyone for joining me. Thank you, Darkcon. Thank you, Tyler. You've all been great.
Yeah. Thanks for having us on, Loudmouth. It's been great.
And everyone, all right, go out and see Frank Herbert's Dune, the Denis Villeneuve version on the biggest screen possible out there. All right, get this movie to making enough money that it gets the sequel it needs, and you'll be satisfied because it's an awesome movie.
Go watch it, everybody.
I'll do it ASAP.
Yeah, everyone go see Dune. It's fucking awesome, and Denis Villeneuve did a good job with the story.
Yep.
All right, everyone.
See you later.
Out. Have a great night.
Bye-bye.